All right, I think the video's up and running. Not at the golf course, although I believe I drove by the golf course. I drove by something out there on Sierra Avenue 201. Hello, everybody. The Old Tube Radio Network here. Trying to figure out if we are on the air. It looks like I am. OldTubeRadio.net, 27085, where all of you are with your great radios. We'll be talking about and to in about 30 minutes after the roll call here in the Old Tube Radio Network. Those radios from 1958 to 1978, thereabouts, that get a little warm, get very warm to the touch when you turn them on. They vacuum tube radios. We'll be talking about those tonight in the Old Tube Radio Network. Let me go ahead and get started without too much fanfare here on the roll call. This is week 6, the 30th day of March 2019. Somewhere in our 33rd, 34th year, something like that. We've been out a long time. Hello to those who are tuning in, such that it is over at oldtuberadio.net, California, Tennessee, Maryland, Colorado, Georgia, Ohio, South Carolina, and a host of others. Also, hello to you out there watching the video stream tonight. I will keep an eye on the chat over there and answer questions as necessary. Top of the page is our current 00. We'll find out if Jim is listening. Over. Sounding good from Course Gold Starliner. We will tie the bookends up with you at the end of the roll call. Thanks for checking in. Getting to check in for SWL1. Looking over at the video site tonight. I don't see OBP just yet. Get him checked in, though. SWL3 checked in. He said to check him in when I saw him Tuesday at the bowling alley, where a good time was had by some. Probably not me, if I remember my scores correctly. SWL4. SWL5, I've got to check in for Ida Mama Rose from earlier in the week. SWL6. SWL7. Could be poker night tonight. SWL 11 and 12. Email check-ins for Jim and Lisa. SWL 13. And I will keep an eye out at oldtuberadio.net. If I get the right computer up here, to all of you who check in that way or would like to check in that way, get you checked in. Mike often does that. SWL 14. SWL 15. From the big town of Easton. Didn't go through Easton to get where I had to go today. SWL 16. SWL 17. And I need to put something up on the video besides watching me call numbers. Let's do the, what can we do? We'll put on the S meter. So give yourself a signal report. You can see your signal report as you check in tonight on the roll call. Looking for SWL 18. SWL 19. Shortwave listener 20. SWL 21, who is out there waving a hand. That would be the infamous 2-1 himself in the Wasama Swamp Superstation with the longest ground rod. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records. Grab your... Don't get one that's too old. I think the one I have is from 1960-something. It might not be in that one. Grab your Guinness Book of World Records and look for that world's longest ground rod. Or maybe the ugliest radio. Had kind of that mod look to it. Whatever you were on. What were you on? What was that radio you were on this evening, JT? Well, it wasn't that bad. But it wasn't... I think it was just... When you get music that's overproduced, sometimes you get a radio that's just over... It's like green shag carpet. I think that's what I'll chalk that one up to tonight anyway. Enjoyed the old radio night. Let's see, SWL 22.
Dennis?
This is the basic Dennis, over.
I don't move as fast as I used to. Number 20. Check in 29 also.
All right, it could be that delay if you're listening on a Universal Media Net web device to actually get into the radio room, but we're glad you're there. Should have plenty of time tonight. It is 8:13 here on the West Coast. We'll be here for another 2 hours probably for those wanting to check in radio. Sounding good, Harvey, and I'll get Bill in at the right time. And I'm looking at some comments here. It looks like Ray made it on Facebook. Echo. If you're getting echo, check to make sure you don't have two browser or two windows open with the old Tube Radio Network running. That's usually what happens around here. But then you have to find them. Find out where they're at. So typically if there was an echo, I think I would hear it too. We'll see. Hello to Juliet Whiskey out there in Iowa tonight. Hi, John. Thanks for checking in with us tonight. We have SWL 20's checked in. 21 is checked in. SWL 23. Shortwave listener 24.
24 checking in.
SWL 24 is checking in and sounding good. Good audio tonight. Everything sounds like it's working properly tonight. Got you checked in. We go to SWL 25.
Hello, Dennis 25. I thought I heard another station underneath 24. You may want to call.
Yeah, thank you. I heard something in there as well. Thanks for reminding me. Sometimes I pick up the pen and I forget. You are checked in and sounding mighty good here in Central Fresno. Was there another station wanting to check in? This is the Old Tube Radio Network. Okay, I think I've got all that, and I will try and remember to mention that. Chuck, SWL 92 in Madera checking in and also reminding us that at the end of April, and it should be the last Saturday, if I've got this right, and I'll double check it. In Madera, the Amateur Radio Club having their swap meet and things of that nature, and I believe the call you gave was Whiskey 6, Whiskey Golf Zulu, Madera County Amateur Radio Club. All right, I've got that right in Madera, and I will try and get some information again on that, but to look forward to being able to get out to that over. All right, and we've got you checked in. If you need to go 92, SWL 92. I always know it's my time to check in on the Wednesday night, Ned, because Chuck has a call very close to mine in the alphabetical order of things. So when I hear the beaconing voice of Chuck out of Madera, I always have to make sure I have my microphonium ready. This is the Old Tube Radio Network. Our microphoniums are always ready to talk with and talk about the tube radios. SWL 25 is checked in. Over to page 2 for SWL 27. All right, negative on the echo. I'll do a double transmission here. FM and AM. Thank you Dwayne, another one of the net controllers for the 10-meter Wednesday night net. You are sounding good, and I've got you checked in. KB6G update. Dwayne is checked in. Also, SWL29 with a proxy check-in. Make sure I put the X's where they go, and I'm counting these up at the end. I don't want to shortchange any of the pages. We skip over to SWL31, which requires me to look onto the big board. And I thought I did see, it would be Robert and Teresa out there in Tennessee. Oh, yeah, there they are. They're hiding right in the center of the auditorium tonight. But 31 is checked in, and I have checked you guys in. Thanks for tuning in. Well, one of our long-time digital listeners, that's for sure. When we first started streaming, I don't know how you guys found us here with your big digital antenna, I guess. Anyway, thanks for tuning in yet again to a Saturday night item of interest where the radios will be happening soon. SWL 32. SWL 33, myself, Bozo Control. I think the jingle singers are here. We were copying things and checking up the microphones, and the proboscis is honking. So a good time is going to be had by just about everybody. I hope even me. If you're going into the green room tonight, be careful. SWL 34. SWL 35, Mr. Bill, up in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where I think the weather is getting better. I see you checking in on the big page. Thanks, Bill. Also from the Pacific Northwest, the mighty Timtron, multi-frequential Tim, waving a hand from Washington State. You're on early tonight. So I don't know if you're playing hooky. You got the night off, whatever. Have some radio fun tonight. I don't know what 75 meters is doing, but fire up some stuff. We haven't had any good conditions, but Tim is one of the few stations that's actually been able to break in and hear the goings on here from his location many miles away. It's safe to talk over 150 miles now, according to the FCC, so we won't be breaking any laws when Timtron says hello to us over the speaker. Next is SWL 36, Roy. SWL 37.
SWL 37 here, Dennis. I'm going to be watching a movie, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to check anything in, but if there's enough time after the movie's over, I will check it in.
No problem. Or you could watch one of those movies where they talk on the CB radios a lot. And then you'll feel like you checked in, even though you haven't. But you have checked in. SWL 37 has the big X in the square. Enjoy the movie. I can smell the popcorn.
Yeah, we're going to watch Aquaman.
I'm not familiar with that movie. I think the last movie I saw was Kansas City Bomber back in 1972, so I have a lot of catching up to do. We'll talk to you later, perhaps.
Okay, Dennis. Be good. Take care.
Where Raquel Welch is a roller derby queen. Something like that, I think. Okay, where are we at? Direct net roll call, your old tube radio network, SWL 38, SWL 39, SWL 40,
SWL 40 checking in, and please proxy in SWL number 7.
All right, 40 live at the microphonium. Thank you, Larry. 7 will get proxied. See if you can make it in before we sign out, before we flip the big switch. There is no, maybe that's the problem. There really is no big switch here to flip. That's how you know you're running the big iron, because you have a modulation transformer that can only be moved by a crane, and you have a big switch to flip. Thanks, Larry. We are looking for SWL 41. SWL 42.
42 here checking in with 90 and 137 for the triple play. Thanks, Dennis.
Okay, will do. Pushing the S meter up to 20 over. So you're more than 9 pounds, good modulation in Chestnut and Herndon, and we will get all the crew in at the appropriate time. SWL 43. And SWL 44. Maybe checking in twice if there's an echo going on. Ray, Mr. 360, who is, I think, listening in, hanging out over on the video side, also here at oldtuberadio.net. With those weird Facebook issues. Who knows? Who knows what lurks in the mind of that Facebook guy. Thanks, Ray, for always listening in and your comments. Here is perhaps SWL 45.
Sounding good as usual, Dennis. 45.
All right. It's always nice to have our stations, our shortwave listeners, our tube radio operators with good receivers to pick up the likes of this, what do they call it, micro-milliwatted master net control. Sounding good, Paul. SWL 46, SWL 47, SWL 48. He came in live last week. Let me see if he's on the list. He's on the list. Hey, Steve out of Ohio. Said they had a good time at the beach with the Jingle Singers. They don't seem to want to socialize with me. Although I did bake some chocolate chip cookies today. The Steve and Bob show in Ohio. They go on the road. They must have a big tour bus. I'll be looking for the tour bus going down 99. And they invite everyone to join them in the green room after the show. I knew they were going to stay up late tonight. Pumpkin bread, fresh from the oven. That actually sounds good with hot butter. Okay. They are crazy out there. Who needs chocolate chip cookies when you've got all that? So we might not get anybody up in the air chair tonight. They're having so much fun in the green room. 2 radio check-ins coming up. Looking for SWL, let's see, 48 we didn't get. 49, here's a bell ringer. Let me check the little box that puts the green "you are checked in." As Brian waving a hand, and a big hello to all the old tube radio enthusiasts. Hopefully there are many tonight. The 49 are checking in. And in mid-June, all right, he'll be back in Fresno. That's Brian, who, I don't know if he originally hails from Fresno, but that's where he's at. I used to talk to his dad on amateur radio, and I think was it Smitty, his grandfather as well? It's like a whole amateur radio family there. His dad had the same tri-bander, the same style of tri-bander I had. It was like a TH6 or TH6DX. And Smitty might have been the first guy I talked to on 2 meters when I got my first handy talkie. So, coming from a long line of radio people there. Looking good, Brian. Thanks for checking in. Where are we going next? Over to SWL 50. SWL 51.
51, checking in.
51 checking in. Well, I wasn't quite in Sanger today, but did make it into Kingsburg, where there's a lot of the rivers are flowing good. We're out in a farm doing a radio remote, and the guy said that the level of the well is up 20 feet. So good things are happening all around. Thanks, Dave. You're sounding good.
Thank you, Dennis.
SWL 52. SWL 53.
Hello, Dennis. 53 checking in.
Wow, I must have my headphones turned way. You are loud. Well, maybe that's just because you're loud. SWL 53, that's Mr. Belair. Sounding good, Bob, and we've got you checked in.
Thank you.
SWL 54. And a proxy and Larry. Still might be working on getting all the antennas back up. SWL 55. It was just a super nice day today. It's been real windy. Well, it wasn't windy today. We could see the mountains, the Sierra Nevada. It just was just a great day. So if everybody's out still doing stuff, I can understand why. They don't want to come in. They want to come in and play radio. But we're here till 10 o'clock, so we'll pick up people as they show up. Maybe this guy. Hello, 56, just for kicks.
Good evening, Dennis and the net. 56, just for kicks.
All right, we got you checked in. And as always, putting in a good signal here. Yeah, give yourself a signal report on the video. We're running the S-meter, the horrible S-meter such that it is, but if you watch the playback, you'll be able to give your own signal report. And over to the video side. Who's listening? And welcome to the news stations in California, Oceanside, way down there. Don't get too many Orange County areas. Too many people south of Long Beach. Good old Oceanside. I hail from Manhattan Beach, so it's always good to see Southern California in there. Hello to Mariposa, Pennsylvania. New York is in. So we're doing good. Looking for SWL 57. SWL 58.
SWL 58, checking in from the second largest raisin capital of the world, Biola. Thank you, Dennis.
You know, I think they need to do a recount. It's like those election things. I bet if they recounted, Selma might have to change their sign. I drove by remember the old Selma sign, Raisinal Capital of the World, and just kept getting more faded and graffitied, and they'd fix it. Now they have this sort of brick monolith thing with Selma, the alleged raisin capital of the world. But we know better. I'm going to go out there personally and start counting those raisins at Biola. Thanks for checking in, Jeremy.
Great, Dennis.
Super for sure.
SWL 59. SWL 60.
Thank you much, Dennis. Well, we got the mic in the hand here. I want to proxy in 650. He asked me to do that for him. He said he had some chores he needed to finish up. And let's get this Big Jake's bass counted just this evening there, the DX2527.
X in the square, the DX2527, 291, sounding 291 radio, sounding good. We've got you checked in. And what else? It is a good day. I was looking at TB44. It also, KBG 665 in the Bluegrass State is also waving a hand. And you're sounding good, Joe. Thanks.
You're welcome.
My chair is... What is wrong with my chair? It's crooked. Something's happening. Hold on. Everything was at a slight angle. I don't need any other distractions here. Now that's better. A little bit of adjusting. SWL 61.
61, checking in there.
I can hear so much better when I'm sitting properly in the chair. Thanks, Dean, for checking in.
Thank you.
SWL 62. It's Rex out there in Clovis. SWL 63. BB, Bubba out there in New York. There's a couple of... How many New York stations do we have? I see one. Is there a second one? Not yet. I bet there will be, though. Anyway, we've got you checked in. Thanks for representing the Big Iron on the East Coast. SWL, who's next? SWL 64.
Yeah, you got 64 here.
All right, Jack, you knew I was going to get to this page eventually and call out your name, and I just did that. Thanks for checking in. SWL 65. SWL 66. SWL 67. And, I know what the comment I was going to make to Joe about 650. I heard that conversation earlier. He was coming in pretty good tonight. Here on my wimpily low antenna. Did I mention the tube radios, the glow-in-the-dark radios, will be happening after the roll call, so stay tuned for that. See who the most manufacturer, the most checked-in manufacturer. We usually get some rare radios. I guess they're all rare now that most of them are 40 years old. SWL 68. We have the greatest tube radio operators take time out of their Saturday evenings to jump into the Radio Shack, sneak out from whatever they're doing, and key up for us occasionally. SWL 69.
69 checking in, Dennis, on this Mustang 2.
On the Mustang 2, sounding good here into Midtown Fresno tonight. Thanks. SWL 70.
Hello, Dennis. 70 checking in. Have you changed something since last week? It seems you're a lot stronger.
Well, I have the same procedure for cranking all this up. My power meter behind me, the final output meter, that meter is good. Final output is okay. Now, I think it's maybe I just left things alone. Maybe that's the key to this.
Could be conditions, yeah. It's super quiet up here, too. So, all right, man. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
All right. Plus, when in the giant radio room you have over there, probably have a real good receiver. What was I looking? I thought of you. It was some ARRL book about portable or antennas, and the one they gave you, the little teaser preview, was for this dual portable antenna where you use two of the MFJ whips in a horizontal configuration, and then you put it on some PVC mast and things. And I was reminded of your great demonstration at the FARC Club with your telescopic mast and all the... I think you were using wire, though, but I thought, well, see how easy it is to go portable? Maybe. All right. Do you have any plans? Do you have any portable plans coming up?
Yeah, this summer. I didn't go last summer, but at least so I'll do my big trip probably late August. Mid-late August. I'll do my backpacking trip and do it. I don't know if I'll get it in before then. We'll see. Are you talking about like where you take the MFJ ham stick things and make a dipole out of them?
Yeah, apparently they have a 20-meter... If it's fully extended, it's like 17 feet, some type of a 20-meter extendable telescopic dipole, and this one had one mounted on each side. So I guess it's a quarter wave, right? So it's like a half-wave dipole. And then you measure, as you collapse your elements for 15 and for 12 and 10 and 6 and measure it out and then put it in some type of a PVC thing that you can stick up on your mast at your campsite.
Okay. Yeah, I know I've seen those before, but and I've tried the other dipole setups, but not QRP though. Anyhow, yeah. I usually just use an in-fed wire with a little the tuner, built-in tuner in the KX2. Anyhow, we're gonna be hanging out listening, man. Thanks again, Dennis.
All right, thanks. I just want to mention a lot of the stations that check in are ham radio operators too. And it mixes pretty good with 11 meters. That's a good way to start. It's a good way to start with 11 meters to get your operating skills in order, and then you go and take the paper test and get the fundamental rules and regs in order and get your ham license. This is the perfect time to... It's like getting into the stock market. I'm going to take just a second here. You're supposed to get into the stock market at the bottom, right? You get in when prices are low and you ride it up. Right now, the sunspot numbers are very low. This is the perfect time, if you haven't already, to study for your test, get your ham license, because in the next 5 years, the conditions are just going to get better and better and better. You'll have time to work on your station and work on your antennas, and then when it's the big time, 100 solar sunspot numbers beaconing down on you, you'll be ready to go. You'll be like getting into the stock market at the right time, getting into amateur radio at the right time. So that's my little story here. There are some local tests and things coming up, but think about it. Think about it for 2019 if you haven't already got your ticket or are going to do an upgrade. You will be glad you did. Speaking about amateur radio, here's a guy that does okay on both 11 meters and elsewhere. SWL 71. Hello, Stan. Got you checked in. I think I did see you on the page down there. Yeah. In fact, he's working the CQWPX contest. I'm not familiar with the WPX contest this weekend. There's always a contest going on. My favorites are the QSO, the state QSO parties, because they're easy to do. You don't have to really be gung-ho contester to get into those. All right, we'll go back to the roll call. Radio's coming up. Thanks, Stan, for listening in. SWL 72. SWL 73. 73 is also a ham radio operator who has some of the really old pre-class D11 meter equipment. Gonna have to talk John into firing some of those up. SWL 74 will have checked in.
Break OTR.
That's Miss Julie. The break OTR, go ahead.
65 checking in.
And let me back up the page here. Still on the same page. It's like running into the other room to get something you forgot. SWL 65. Sounding good, Eric.
Thank you. Have a good one.
74 is in. SWL 75. SWL 77.
77 on the Tower Power out of the Tower District. Check it in and waving a hand to all the listeners.
Good deal. Sounded really good. Put the X in the square. And there are a lot of listeners. Hey, you know what? The Nottingham Forest is in. Hello, Wayne. Man, you were up super early. Did they change the clocks back so far that the sun is up at 4 in the morning? Good to have you aboard. Hello to Michael. And New York is in. Smarty Jones, thanks for listening in. TB44 to course. And all the rest over on the video side. And if I would keep going here, we could do some radios. SWL 78. SWL 79.
79, check it in.
Wow, another one in the 20 over club. Sounding good, Philip. SWL 80. And Steve Arena was out here last week. SWL 81.
Not to disappoint, 81's out here again this week, checking in. And, man, you're sounding good out here in this neck of the woods. But, you know, by the way, I was just kind of wondering.
Oops.
Uh-oh, I lost my audio. There it is. Who's that Raquel Welch that you mentioned earlier?
Who is that Raquel Welch? I don't know. That's probably the only movie I saw that she was in. It was the roller derby, the roller skating movie called whatever it was called, Kansas City Bomber. Who is that person? I'm sure there were no Academy Awards involved in that.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the same person that was in the Fantastic Voyage. I don't know. I'm not old enough to remember that one either.
Yeah, and there was another one like 10,000 BC or something, where the dialogue, it doesn't matter what the dialogue is. That's as they say, that's not the point. You are sounding loud as ever. Thanks for waving a hand to the Old Tube Radio Network and starting us off on page 4.
All right, thanks for the check-in. You're sounding good, and I'm out and listening.
Hi.
And, X4000. Oh, who's watching the Fantastic Voyage right now? I'm getting X4000 checked in. And I guess he's fast-forwarding to that part where where the wetsuit shows up. I'm not sure. SWL 82.
82, checking in from the ditch banks of Biola. Good evening.
And hello, radio. The ditch banks are doing well. We're going to try and get a few more raisins out there to take over Selma Town. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you, Dennis, but I think the almonds are beating up on the raisins.
Well, you got that right. I was where I was at today was a small little farm, and they were already planting. The almonds were just all over those trees. And the guy said, yeah, it's going to be a great year for our almonds. He said, unfortunately, it's going to be a great year for everyone's almonds. So, you know, a grapevine will, produce for 100 years? I don't know. Almonds, maybe not so, but yeah, I guess you got to go with what works. Thanks for checking in.
Pikachu.
Then we head over to SWL 84.
84. Good evening, Dennis. Hope all's well there in your camp, and we're trying to make a slow comeback. So, be forewarned, I might be back on for quite a bit here in a little while, but just still fighting a few issues there, Dennis. If you can check in on my girls, I would really appreciate it, Roger.
Absolutely. Good to hear you at the microphonium. The X in the square looks especially nice. We'll get the rest of the gang. And you sound like you are on the, on the elevator. And you've got the top floor button pressed. And it takes a while to get there, but it will get there. Thanks for checking in.
Oh, very good, Dennis. Yeah, you were talking about almonds being a pretty good crop. I know we had an excellent crop on our pecans, but the price of pecans since the tariff we didn't even make not even 50% of what we usually make, but it'll come back around for sure. Thanks, Dennis.
Squirtle.
Yeah, that's what I was getting. It was like, it looks good on the ranch, but when it starts heading out, it has some issues. So, yeah, hopefully that will, like you said, that situation will get taken care of. The Cheerios Kid, also another station that has his amateur radio license and can be heard occasionally on 40 meters. And sounding good here on 11 meters tonight. Thanks, Jerry. Good to hear you on the radio. SWL 85.
85 checking in.
That's your D2.
85 checking in from Reedley Town. Sounding good here in Midtown Fresno tonight. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Dennis.
And we have check-ins for SWL 86, 87, and 88. That is the Mountain Maid, Tandy Girl, and the Snowy Owl, respectively. Over to SWL 89. I have a note to get Darren checked in via proxy, which I will do. Mentioned that he is working on getting some antennas and things up. Also, hello to the mighty KUH, talking about amateur radio operators. From the old stuff to the new stuff, hope the Radio Shack is getting back in order there, Brian, between, what was it, lightning hit? Something was going on. I know you are still buying the stuff, so if there's antennas to hook it to, keep going. If there's room on the radio table, fire it up. And when the sunspot starts happening, maybe we'll make some contacts here on 10 meter AM. So we are looking for SWL 90. We've got to check in. That's number 2 of 3. Let's try SWL 92. Oh, 92 is already checked in. I've got the X there. That was Chuck earlier telling us about the Madera Amateur Radio Club Hamfest, and I will again try to remember to add some more information to that before we sign off tonight. Radios are coming right up here, so don't go away. SWL 93.
Okay.
SWL 98. SWL 98, Fresno Dave. Sometimes known as the 544, I think when the skip is rolling, but 98 tonight.
Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome.
And let's see if the mobile is radioactive. SWL 103. SWL 109. Shortwave listener 110. The other Reedley station that was beaconing in earlier, I'm not sure if he's still out there, but I'm going to give him an X on the square, SWL 111. Hey, you're going to like listening to the replay on that one, almost like there's an echo as the signal bounces its way through the raisins and the almonds and everything else to make it to here into Midtown Fresno from Reedley tonight. Sounding good, Robert. Thanks for checking in live. Over to SWL 113.
Charmander.
SWL 114.
114, checking in.
And 114 is checked in. Thanks, Wayne. Sounding good. I want to wave a hand to one of the sort of, I guess, world-renowned 11-meter operators here who's tuning in from Independence, Kansas. That's Toby, who runs at least one of the really cool Facebook pages dealing with 11-meter stuff and all things radio. Thanks, Toby, for tuning in tonight. Good to have you on board with the Old Tube Radio Network tonight. See if we can't get some of your favorite. It's been a long time since we've checked in a Browning Mark II, but we will be doing some stuff tonight. Hello to the Ohio station that is checked in also. Kerman listening in tonight. Radio's coming up. We are looking for SWL 128. And if I was a good net control, I would scroll down to see if indeed John Lee said hello radio, and he has, out there in Fairfax, Virginia. Checking in moments ago. Got you official there. Thanks for listening in. SWL 131. Shortwave listener 133.
Good evening, Dennis. 133 is checking in.
SWL 133, another one of our amateur radio operators out there. Also, if I remember correctly, running... Are you still running the Delta Loop for 11 meters?
QSL. That's my amateur antenna, but I just use it for the CB also.
See, it works. That's what well, depending on how you feed it, I guess, and then antenna tuners do fun stuff. So don't think it costs an arm and a leg to do this stuff. One wire can make things really easy. Thanks, Dave. Over to SWL 135, who I think we are proxying in. Hello, Cliff. Although even Cliff isn't here yet tonight, you will probably see a lot of his handiwork as we use many of his photography items to display the radios as they check in. SWL 137 gives us the full 3 of 3 triple play for the Phantom. And then Mr. Tony, who always puts in a good signal here into Midtown Fresno. SWL 145.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. 145 checking in. Audio. Audio check. 1, 2. Audio.
Audio sounding good. You can get the replay on the archives, going to oldtuberadio.net, hitting the archive button, looking for the SWL check-ins for tonight's date, or probably so many minutes in on the video replay. You are sounding good with the audio report. Next, we've got SWL 147, Neil, who is also amateur radio active when he gets in front of the proper microphonium, and he is out there saying that the weather's turning spring-like. Boy, it was definitely spring-like here in Central California, out there in the Sand Hills. So what happened to the sunspots you reported last week? Well, what was it, 1? Those sunspots were at 11, so something was pointing toward the Earth. OBP, our sunspot spotter, is not out there yet tonight, and there's still not much happening. So I again reiterate that it's like the stock market. Get in now while the sunspots are low. Build your station, work on your antennas, and you will be super ready to go. You will be able to do like SWL 70. You will be able to run the QRP radios and still make lots of contacts. Thanks, Neil, for checking in. You know it's radio time when we hear the voice of 00 once again. Hello, 195.
195, checking in, Dennis.
Course Gold Starliner looking good. Thanks, Jim. And then we're going to look for SWL 226, Jeff, who is also an amateur radio operator. Any other stations wanting to check in that I might have missed before we head over to the radios? Okay, give me a moment to make sure that all is well here. I'll make sure that the Jingle Singers, the green room is ready for you all. And we'll be talking tube radios in just moments on your old tube radio network. And you are listening to the Old Tube Radio Network.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? Greetings to you, wherever you are. For music and the latest news from home and from afar, the station for you is
OTR, Old Tube Radio.
The station for you is
OTR.
From home and afar and very afar now, thanks to OTR, oldtuberadio.net, and the streaming audio. A lot of you listening in at oldtuberadio.net. I hope you do something like this where you are, whether it's just a get on the air night or an old radio night like JT does, or something to exercise the radios. We do it here once a week, specifically for the old tube radios. Like an old car, occasionally you have to pull them out of the garage and drive it around the block, and it's fun. It's fun to watch the fins and chrome of radio. Hello to those joining us in Seattle, Washington, and up in Iowa and Sydney, Australia, where it is tomorrow or yesterday. I'm not sure. Anyway, we can hear you guys. When the conditions are good and Hawaii is beaconing in, Sydney, Australia is not too far away, so welcome tonight. We're at 27085 is our frequency if you'd like to dial in. But typically, on an evening like this, oldtuberadio.net works well if you are not in the DX zone. OTR is standing by, and we're listening for radio number 1.
45.
25.
All right, 2 heard, 45. That's Paul. Go ahead and step up into the air chair. We'll put you in down as radio number 1. And Jerry, I know you will want to join the Jingle Singers and all the activity heading over in the other studio in the green room. It sounds like it's a little bit wild, but keep an ear out for when it's your time. I don't want to have to be throwing stuff across the rack here at the glass. Stepping up to the microphonium now at 8:56. Boy, that was a long roll call, but it was a good one. We've got Paul, who is up in North Fork in the foothills north and east of my location here, maybe 30, 40 miles away. Always does a good job on my receiver. Hello, Paul, over.
Yeah, hi, Dennis. Beautiful night up here. Tell you what, I want to check in my generator telephone, SB-72.
Beautiful downtown Burbank, the General Radio Telephone, and I believe you said it was the SB, the Sierra Bravo 72, is that correct?
That's correct. Sideband.
Sideband. Let's talk about sideband, because this is one, I'll pull up, this is one of the early sideband radios from the collection of Paul, it says. So we may be, I get the video to behave, looking at the actual radio on which Paul is talking here. We'll find out. But there it is. This doesn't look like something that was put out in 1978. I'm sure it's a bit earlier than that. The audio sounds great. Give us a transmission on the General Radio Telephone SB72.
Okay, this was maybe the first or one of the first sideband radios they made back in, 1964, the 63, 64. So I don't know whether the first or not, but it's darn close to it. A beautiful radio. The thing is, it's got a Collins mechanical filter in it. And back there in 63, 64, it sold for $599.50. Same price as the MC100 that Harvey has. It's a prototype. It never got sold. Prototype did it. So they went for big money. Anyway, back to you.
Yeah, as the amateur radio world was ditching AM and going sideband, of course, Class D was channelized and crystal controlled, and as it was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be a hobbyist type thing, but General Radio Telephone kind of stuck their neck out with putting a sideband radio out when there were no other sideband radios, so you pretty much had to buy a pair or a set and work the sideband. I noticed that it has the GRT logo on it, pretty cool, which we didn't see till, the Super MC11A. It's got the giant rack handles. And yeah, we're showing 1963, so that was a bold move for them. The General Radio Telephone model SB72, 13-tube, single sideband. They had a couple extra tubes in there for product detectors and sideband mods and things. General was way ahead of the time when they built this radio. Like you said, one of the first ones for 11 meters. It had 24 channels, probably it had a Civil Air Patrol at 26,620. It also had a dual conversion receiver and a Collins mechanical filter. Did they put those in their other Generals? I don't think so. So that's got the Collins mechanical filter in it. And it says it only uses one crystal for transmit and receive. So that may have some weird mixing properties when you go to change things around. Let's hear more from the 13-tube SB72, over.
Okay, yeah, that had the Collins mechanical filter in the thing. The best filter ever was made for these things. So it makes you sound super good, too. Everybody sounds good on the Collins filter. I'm running a Turner M plus U2U, or U2, microphone on the thing. Of course, I didn't get the soft mic when I got this radio. Wish I had it, but they're pretty hard to come by sometimes. So I keep it turned down because this thing's got a mic gain on the radio also. So, you can blast things out if you want to hurt somebody's ears. That is a beautiful radio. It's got a lot of lights on it. It's got a big meter on the thing. And as you can see, a grill speaker on the right-hand side, which is pretty good size because the radio's big compared to the other radios. And that's about it. Thanks for checking it in, Dennis.
It's got great AM audio. Nice clean audio. I popped up the Orban loudness meter, and you're right up there where you should be. Our first radio of the evening from General Radio Telephone, their early sideband, and then after that, 63, when they started making the MC5s and 6, they did not have sideband on any of their other radios, I don't believe. There was the prototype, the MC100. So me thinks this was an experiment that maybe was not a big seller. I'm just wondering where they stuffed all the parts for that. I wonder if they ever entertained maybe throwing some sideband in like the MC11 or the 12 when the other radios started doing that nice nice audio, and come back again. Give us one more transmission before. Is it possible to flip the sideband to go to one of the sidebands? I don't know how well everything works, but just stay right here on 11 and kick a Hello Radio and sideband.
Don't tell me where I'll go to. I'll go to the lower band and keep on talking just for a minute, see if it sounds any better or worse up there. Can you understand me? Back to this one right here.
Yeah. Sounds like the AM carrier might be needing to be nulled out a little bit. But it definitely went to some site. I didn't go to the receiver to find out which one you're on, but it went into sideband. But it sounds like it has a little bit of a carrier still inserted, which is okay. If you're zero beated on whatever sideband you're on, you won't hear the carrier. What it does do is make your audio a little bit more. Which is okay. Understandable.
Zero beated on whatever sideband you're on.
And now I have audio coming in.
You won't hear the carrier. What it does do is make your audio a little bit more. Which is okay.
So what did I do? So anyway, I'm going to get out of here so I can find my audio coming in.
You won't hear the carrier. What it does do is make your audio a little bit more. Which is okay.
So what did I do? So anyway, I'm going to get out of here so I can. Okay, apparently I pressed some button here that put me into a strange loop. Thanks, Paul, for your check-in. And let's see if we can go to radio number 2. Now, I have an audio issue that I got to figure out here. So, Jerry, if you're there, pull me out of this.
Well, Dennis, I'm here. I tell you what, the Jingle Singers are having fun. They're in their mini skirts and have the white go-go boots on, and they're looking really mod, as you said earlier. I'm curious about the audio issues here. Am I coming through okay? Back to you.
Yeah, you sound excellent. The audio issues are on my end. I've got some feedback loop going on, so you'll probably hear an instant replay until I figure out. Oh, wait a minute. I think I may have found something here. No, it's not that one. Until I find out where the feedback loop is coming from. Over.
Got a double, Dennis.
Yeah, I may have doubled with you, Paul, but the audio on your end is fine. Over.
Okay, Dennis. Anyway, and Paul, by the way, I followed you to lower sideband. You had a squeal. Kind of weird. You had a squeal on the lower sideband on that. So anyway, okay, well, Dennis, if everything is working, then thank you for your gracious hospitality in the green room with the pretzels and the beer and joking around with the Jingle Singers. Allow me, please, to check in the General Radio. No, excuse me. This is from Browning Laboratories from downtown Burbank, California. No. I'm sorry. Well, if I get taken for that stuff. This is the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB on the non-powered banana microphone. And boy, did I mess that all up. But trying to. Okay, I think that's. I got it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. The Browning Golden Eagle SSB Mark III.
The Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB sounding good. I think I've stopped the audio loop. The Mark III doing a good job. If you can hear me, give me another transmission.
Yeah, you're sounding great, Dennis. Go ahead.
All right. Well, we don't need to hear me talk. I want to hear you key down, or is it key up, on the Browning Mark III tonight. And do you remember where or how you got that particular Mark III? Over.
Yes, I did. Back in probably the mid-90s, Everett, number 8. I had a couple of 3 of them, and of course he wouldn't give them up. He had to have 1 or 2 or 3. Had to have 1 working and then 2 or 3 backups. So I said, well, okay, I'm just going to get my own. So I did, and I actually got it on back in probably 1998 or something. And but I tell you what, I have not touched this radio. No one's had their finger in it. With mic with a bass, and it also came with a non-powered D104 2-pin. And I tell you what, this has been my go-to radio. It's never let me down, and I've never had the lid off of it. And it seems to be working, as my ex-German boss would say. Anyway, back to you, Dennis.
Back to me in the studio. The audio is great. It's like Browning audio. It's very hard to make a Browning not sound like a Browning if you're doing it correctly. They were extremely well built. There is a book out. I think there's an update to the book about servicing and working with the Browning. In fact, I would love to talk to that. Maybe he's listening, the Oceanside station. There's our Oceanside station still listening in there. Maybe is that the author? Raise your hand if you're the guy that wrote the Browning book out there listening in to us tonight. We'll have to talk to you sometime on the phone patch. But there is all sorts of information on that radio, of course. There are modifications, but the way they built it to sound and do what it's supposed to do. Yeah, you can make the ping longer if you want. You can do some modifications, I suppose. But right out of the box, if you run it per textbook, you can't go wrong even 40 years later. Back to you.
Well, thanks, Dennis. Anyway, yeah, it's a cool radio. Like I said, the red on-the-air light is on, and everything's working. Actually, if I switch the meter to not the A&L, but the power, man, it just beats the heck out of that 4 meter. So I just have it on SWR, so it just kind of sits there quietly. But yeah, you know this radio. You've talked on it. So anyway, thanks, Dennis, for checking it in. And you were saying, I think on your monologue or in your intro about something being mod. You dated yourself, but that's okay because I still use boss and bitchin'. Anyway, back to you, Dennis.
Yeah, I think I was referring to the design of JT's, he called it the ugly radio tonight, where they went with some round things and strange knobs, but it probably looked good in the living room with the beanbag furniture and the round chairs, and I've got one of those round clocks and the green shag carpet. Yeah, the mod era was right in the middle of a lot of these radios when they started going from the garage into the living room. Sounding good on the Browning. Toby agrees that it's hard to beat a Browning. He's got a lot of them. So you've got our Browning aficionado fans tonight happy that you are tuning in on a Browning. Also, hello to, let's see, Andy, Mr. Transistor in Columbus, Ohio, waving a hand. And who else is tuning in tonight to the Old Tube Radio Network? This is something we do every Saturday here in Central California. And believe it or not, we have been doing this pretty much every Saturday for the last 34 years. Just recently started doing some video and some streaming and getting into the 21st century with these older radios. So we welcome those who come along with us on the weekends and help us out with information and enjoy the radios saying, yeah, I've got one of those. Or maybe you were transmitting on your tube radio this week, looking for that elusive skip. Radio number 2 at 908. We'll log it in. Thanks to Jerry for the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III. And he's right. I actually did a net control on that years ago. Looking for radio number 3.
45.
And we have a radio 3 from Paul. Can you hear me? Oh, and I wanted to make a comment now that Paul is on, and Jerry had mentioned that when he went to listen to you on sideband, he heard a squeal, and that goes with what I was saying in that the SB-72 is inserting a lot of, it's not phasing or not nulling out the carrier all the way. So if indeed you went to the sideband mode to listen in, you would hear the squeal, and that squeal was the AM carrier, which you could, by zero beating whatever exact frequency Jerry was on, or Paul was on, get rid of it and he would sound just fine. So SB-70, that's why I could copy him pretty well on AM, because it still had some carrier. With that said, at 9:13, we will log in Radio 3, but I don't know what it is yet. Over to you, Paul.
I'm looking forward to the archives, Dennis. It's going to be neat to see that. Anyway, this is my general radio telephone, BB-30, Businessband Radio.
All right, getting kind of the fringes of the general radio telephone. We're familiar with the VS, the vibration service, the MC, the master control, but general radio telephone also in their Burbank kitchen or wherever they were creating these radios did the sideband version, the SB-72, which we heard earlier, and now the BB or the business band version, which we will talk about. What was the model number again? Over?
BB-30, like business band.
All right, make it easier for Net Control to find it with that. I'm going to jump over to the video, and it says this is from your collection. Looks like a big radio. Maybe it's just the way the photo is, just from the head on. I see the BB-30, the giant rack handles, and yeah, it looks businessy. I don't see a lot of controls to fool around with. There's an S meter and really nice speakers, so I hope that makes me sound good. I like radios that make me sound good. Let's talk about the BB-30. How many channels? Let's put it this way. How did you get it to channel 11? Over.
Well, I'll tell you what, he did it somewhere or other. I don't know, because it was normally, it's all the higher channels on the thing. But we had quite a time with this radio. We had a time with the microphone on the thing, finding the right microphone. Finally hit on this Turner Plus 2 on the thing, and it works good, so. But this thing's got that ECL 800 tube in it, as you know. You can continue on with it, Dennis. Back to you.
Yeah, a lot of the radios that were designed as business band, or they had a way to go into business band mode, were preferred by some of those that like to mod things, because then you could sort of step around the 5-watt DC input because you were running the business band input, whatever that was. According to this, 9-tube 25-watt RF output. So I don't know if that's what they mean. That's like the DC input. But so this was a couple of times the power of your regular radio. It's great audio. I'm looking at the signal meter too. We'll pop that up. Nice strong signal from 1965. So a couple years after the SB-72. As you mentioned, it had the ECLL 800 tube. And it says the picture does not show the chain. What? The channel knob, A and B on the rocker switch. So A-B is 2 channels. So my guess is it was close enough on the business band frequency, whatever it was, it may be up above 27,235 or below 26,965, that you could maybe just pop a standard Class D channel crystal in there without doing too much tweaking and peaking on the radio, and have yourself a little bit more power and talk power, which you do. Let's hear, and it also says it will go 12-volt DC, so that could run mobile if you wanted. Let's hear your radio again. And speaking of crystal, when you do a transmission, I'll do the 0 beat, and we'll find out exactly where it's at on that crystal.
Okay, sounds good. It doesn't have any bells or whistles on the thing, because it's designed for business bands. You don't need any of that stuff anyway, then. I hope you got it. Back to you.
Yeah, I got it to good 27.084.7. So what's that, 300 cycles low, well within the FCC specs. Still hanging in there from 1965. That's one of the crystals that was put in. The BB-30 business band. I think the Buddy probably had some business band output. The MC11 had some type of strap plug in the back that I think would put it into a business band output. But this was the real deal. This was really a business band radio. So not sure if somewhere it will say it was type accepted for the regular 23 channels at the time, but works good now on the old Tube Radio Network on a Saturday night, and we certainly appreciate you bringing it by. Radios you may not hear in your day-to-day endeavors on your 11-meter radio. Back to you for another transmission, Paul. Radio 3 sounding good, and we'll pop up the S meter for you.
Okay, yeah, this one has an A and B on the thing. Two frequencies on the thing, on the transmit and receive. So they had a single one. I'd like to have the single one, but I've seen pictures of it. Anyway, that's about it. It's really a neat little radio, and thanks so much for checking it in, Dennis.
Thanks for bringing it by. Reading some comments over in the video, Andy. Mr. Transistor in Columbus, Ohio, talking about it's cool to hear that BB30 from General Radio Telephone. He's got a sonar model, I think it's a BR20, which is another single frequency 27 megahertz business band radio on AM. So they were around there, and me thinks that the companies, even though legitimately making the business band radios, knew that if they did it right, it wouldn't be too hard to modify them for your favorite single channel frequency to get yourself a little nice audio and a little signal like we heard from Paul for Radio 3. Speaking about nice audio, the Jingle Singers, I have gotten through in the intercom in the other studio. They have gathered around the ribbon microphoniums, and they will do what they do best, telling us all about their favorite place on a Saturday night.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, your favorite spot on the dial by phone is known to you as
OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network.
The station for you is
OTR.
And the Old Tube Radio Network looking for radio number 4.
Hi.
Hello, 25, over.
Well, hello, Dennis, over. Anyway, 25 like to check in on the Holocrafters FM 1000.
If you were checking in on the FM 1000, that means you would have, a huge AM broadcast transmitter, and I'd be able to tune you in on the FM side, or you would have some type of an FM radio that I would tune you in from 88 to 108. But I will go ahead and pencil in that Helicrafters is the model of choice, and we'll talk about what's going on.
I tell you what, I can't fool you, Dennis. Anyway, boy, back in the day, I used to check in this Holocrafters CB3A little phone, and you would walk across your studio to actually fire up the Holocrafters FM 1000 and actually play it. And but anyway, I'm dating myself. Like words like mod, boss, bitchin'. But anyway, here it is, the Citizens little phone from Holocrafters CB3A on a non-powered D104. Dennis, back to you.
Wow, that is the standard audio out of that. Sounds good. The CB3A sometimes had a penchant for flat topping if you really screamed in the microphone. I think the original microphones were carbon. I'm trying to find a shot. I think I have one here. This is out of Cliff's, but it's a really photo. Let me get it centered up here so people can see what we're talking about with the little phone. Back to 1962 or 63, one of their best sellers at the time. And a neat concept where you, like an automobile, back in the day when Ralph Williams would say it comes with radio, heater, white wall tires. This radio was the same way. You could buy it plain, but you could add, and this one has the S meter that goes in the little rectangular slot on the opposite side of the channel selector. It also had I think it was a receive VFO that you could buy extra for that and would plug right in there. So you could keep the base price of the radio reasonable at about $160 and then add your options. Not sure what options, if any, you have on that one. Over.
Actually, as Ralph Williams would say, and his dog. No, that was somebody else and his dog. But anyway, this has both. This has the VFO on the left side of the channel selector, and it also has the meter on the right side, which is bouncing up and down, as well as when I transmit, as well as when you transmit. So that makes sense, Dennis. Anyway, thanks for checking it in. And a little on the lower left-hand side has a little orange on the airline. Anyway, back to you, Dennis.
It's got nice audio. I actually have one of those here thanks to SWL37 Chris. It is in the back. Well, maybe I'll show it when I kick back into the control room here. And ran that through the audio board. I was very impressed with the amount of audio, the good audio that it could produce. And last week, I'll take a second here, we talked about William J. Halligan, born in 1899, who was the founder of Helicrafters in the late 20s. Did some stuff for RCA. Where did we leave off on that story? I'm looking here. So those that remember from last week, it says the first Helicrafters radios worked for RCA. He also did some stuff for Echophone. Helicrafters in the late 30s. Helicrafters' policy was to build a quality product with all of the state-of-the-art advances and features at a price that was affordable. Yeah, well, sort of like that one. With the policy and good management, they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. And in 1938, and this is during the Depression, that's where we left off. It's all the other radio manufacturers were dropping out. Helicrafters was trying to think how to survive. So just out of common sense, Helicrafters was the most popular manufacturer of communications receivers in the U.S. That's how I started my career with the Helicrafters SX25. And they were doing business in 89 other countries. Bill Halligan decided on another policy that as new features and technical advances were made, Helicrafters would bring out new models rather than just upgrade the same basic model. So maybe that's why they had the CB3A and the 7A and the 9. This explains the profusion of different models, which the 3-year period from 1936 to 1938 had reached 23. Until 1938, the production was limited to receivers and associated accessories, and then it was time to produce transmitters. The job of designing the new product line belonged to the newly hired Bob Samuelson, who was responsible for the design of the HT1 through the HT14 and would shortly become the company's engineer. The HT1, the HT14, some amateur radio transmitters. I have an HT37 way down the line in the 1950s. So we'll leave the story of Helicrafters there, but a great history. Give us another transmission before you go on the CB3A. Over.
Yeah, okay, Dennis. Anyway, that's great information, and this is probably the received radio that, and whoever originally owned it added a bank on the side of the back of the radio that actually more receive tubes. So it's probably the best received. Of course, Helicrafters, they're known for their receive. They're received. So anyway, thanks, Dennis, for checking it in, and interesting story on that.
All right, well, keep continuing. We've made it up to the 40s. There's probably some more interesting facts in the Helicrafters blurb, Radio 4, the CB3A. You just heard Jerry on his. The one I have back here from Chris's collection. Let me move the Heil microphonium out of the way, and it is sitting right back up here with one of Bozo's friends sitting on the top, and that's when I hooked into the audio rack here and was very pleased with the sounds that I was receiving on that. So thanks for Radio 4. We'll be standing by for radio number 5 in the Old Tube Radio Network. And beaconing down. I'm glad there are a few stations that were able to make it into the radio room tonight, sneak away from the activities. What a glorious day it was in the Central Valley. I'm looking at the great weather and the snow-capped mountains, and now we are listening to the classic radios. Hello, Paul. You are radio number 5, over.
Okay. I got out of the really elite class of radios. I want to go back to those standard ones. My general radio telephone is Super MC11A.
All right, we always get one of those. Seems like we always get an 11A. Sometimes we get more than one. Sometimes we get more than 2. Yours is sounding great. We'll put up the great picture we have of the MC11A, and I'll talk to you about the audio. It really doesn't require much except keying the supplied microphone. I wonder what you're doing, because your sound's fine, over.
General CM3 microphone. Stock radio telephone.
The stock microphonium. Let me see if the picture here that Cliff has, let me get it in frame. Yeah, it looks like it says CM3. Anybody has really good resolution might be able to see that. That's the stock microphone that came with it. And you really, I think adding amplification just is unnecessary and probably would distort the voice and not sound the way it's supposed to. The Super MC11A, also, we were talking about the business band radios and the extra output. I think there was a way to, we'll call it strap. That's the word, right? To strap this radio by plugging some octal, inserting the octal plug in the back, and it would increase the RF output with a little bit of the audio suffering. So I don't think yours, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if you've got it in the strapped mode or not, but if it's less than about 6 watts, it's probably stock.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's stock all the way. I call this thing like Mr. Smoky. I got this radio and it was still smells like cigarettes right now. I scraped stuff out of there and cleaned that radio up. At least you got a really clean radio on the thing. But it's finally stopping. That was about 10 years ago. Other than that, it's a good radio. It's putting out exactly what it's supposed to put out there.
Yeah, tar and nicotine probably not good for the kids, the dog, or the radio. But it's working okay now. I probably got the tube contacts cleaned up. Sounds like it's hitting where it should. Nice audio with its 9 tubes. What did this SB72 had? 13 tubes. A lot of extra stuff going on. They figured they could do it with just 9 on the Super MC11A. Of course, they reinserted or put the ECLL 800 back in at some point. I think they realized that was the tube to use. I guess FCC was okay with that. And back in 1970, it was probably easy to find. I know you mentioned that it's a little bit difficult to find one of those today, and I noticed the mic preamp using a 12AX7A. I guess if you were a real audio nut, you could try and find the perfect 12AX7A like the guys do with their guitar amps, but I think you've got it dialed down perfectly. The General Radio Telephone Super MC11A, give us another transmission, over.
Yeah, this about 11-meter Minusband radio came out with a model BB30, which I was just talking on, and like the one channel. This is similar to that as far as the input and everything. This radio does exactly the same wattage as the 11A, if you said it right. Interesting. They had a good idea going all the way. It's too bad they lost it and lost the 12, which we'll get to that one of these days soon, I hope. Thanks, Dennis, for checking it in.
Couldn't find this foot switch for the transmitter. Thanks for bringing it by. That's my pleasure here on the old Tube Radio Network to be the forum to drive cars around the block once every Saturday. I know I enjoyed our listeners at 27085 and all over the Universal Media Net web at oldtuberadio.net. Also enjoying some of the radios. Toby said he had an S40 and the SX100. The S40 was a smaller desktop radio for helicopter. I had an SX25, which I bought for $25 when I was in high school at a local garage sale. And then they had the SX99s and the 100s and the 101s with the giant S meter. Just really, really cool radios. Speaking of giant S meters, the crew of the Jingle Singers over in our other studio have assembled at the microphoniums, and hopefully at the bottom of the hour here will sing something for us.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, the friendliest station for you by far is known to all as
OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network.
The station for you is
OTR.
Looking for radio number 6.
Station.
Hello, station. Over.
Fresno Bagger 1.
Sandbagger 1 at the microphonium. First off, let me grab our shortwave listener list where I don't see the X in the square. So I will go to the magic number of 93 and put the X where it needs to go. Over.
Thanks much. And, hey, can I be radio number 6?
I would, that is my job. That's what I get paid for. Do I get paid? Anyway, that is my job here to make sure that you are radio number 6 tonight. So if you are indeed seated in front of one of those glorious glow-in-the-dark radios, let's talk.
Yes, sir. The Johnson Messenger 223. I want to check it in as radio number 6.
Johnson fans, there's another radio dude I could talk about if I had some information, which I do, but I won't. Just like we did with Bill Halligan, talk about Edgar F. Johnson of E.F. Johnson fame. I don't think he started quite as early as Mr. Halligan, but he was around and doing some good stuff. Here is one of them for the 11-meter mode. It is the E.F. Johnson Messenger 223. There are a couple of flavors of that, Louis, and I don't remember which one you have, and that would be one containing the modulation light or one without the modulation light. Over.
It is the one without the modulation light. It's got the teardrop, I guess, microphone. I don't know what you'd call it, but it looks standard because I've seen it on other kinds of radios, like on tubers.
Okay, I've chosen the right shot, at least to feature the radio, because it doesn't have the modulation light. I'm going to flip over to another shot that has the modulation light, but on this radio, switch over, it will show, well, maybe not, but it should show the microphone as well, but it doesn't look like it's wanting to switch over, so let me try something here. There it is. And you, does your desk microphone have the words Johnson across the push-to-talk bar?
I do not have a desktop mic. It is a handheld mic. This is not the original mic that came with the radio. Somebody put this on there.
And does your desk microphone have the
to
words
me, it looks like
Johnson
a
across the
teardrop, and I've seen it as on radios that I've seen it on. They were gray. Some were black. So they were a popular mic.
Yeah, Johnson had some other standard microphones. They had what they call the ice cream cone style and some other ones. But it's a good match. Whatever you've got, the microphone you have is a really good match for your voice and the audio. You certainly want to have anything more amplified. And you've done a good job. E.F. Johnson Messenger 223 got its name from the fact that it was like a Messenger 2. I think if you look on the inside, it's a lot like the Messenger 2, but they went from the 8, 10 channel, whatever the Messenger 2 was, to 23 channels and added the S meter, made it a little bit more. In fact, it was a base radio only. I do not believe this would run 12 volts at all, and it became the Messenger 223, and a really, really good seller for E.F. Johnson from 1969 to 1972, around $200, maybe $215 with the microphone. They even sold a knockoff to the Sears Roebuck company. So if you have one of those, something that looks like that with the SR, little atomic SR logo, you've got a Messenger 223. Louis, Radio 6 is sounding good. Let's hear it again, and I thank you for jumping into the radio room tonight with us.
Well, I had to keep my my number up there, man. I have to keep my number 1 up there. So where am I at tonight?
We are in the 7th. I think I said 6th, but we're in the 7th week of the 8-week roster, and you are doing just fine. And you mentioned something, and I always like to bring this up. You don't have to have any special number to jump in and talk on the Old Tube Radio Network. If you've got an Old Tube Radio and you've never keyed up on Channel 11 or heard of the Old Tube Radio Network, we welcome you to stop by. It's always interesting to ask questions or comments, so yeah, numbers not necessary to join in on the Old Tube Radio Network. We're not a club. There's no secret handshake. No badges you have to wear, although I do have a badge, I think. But we appreciate the fact that you stop by and share your collection with us.
No problem there. Yeah, I had to keep my old reputation up there, number 1.
Number 1 sandbagger. No doubt. Well, you are doing good, and you can jump back into whatever it was that you were doing. Yeah, the echo came back because I restarted something. And when I do that, I have to make sure that I unstart the audio. Thanks, Louis, for your contribution tonight. I also want to say hello to Mr. OBP. SWL2 will get you checked in. I'll also give you a signal report, Mr. OBP. You are, dare I say it, you are 9 pounds and good modulation at Chestnut and Herndon. We are looking for Radio 7.
Break OTR.
The break OTR. I am still here in the other air chair, over.
Okay, well, hopefully the Jingle Singers are still having fun and with their go-go boots on, white go-go boots at that. Anyway, thanks, Dennis, for posting the net, and I know this is funky audio. I know. Funky. I said F-U-N-G-K. Along with Mod, Boss, Bitchin', all out of the 60s. The General Radio Telephone, MC5, this one's definitely out of downtown Burbank, California, and back to you, Dennis.
Downtown Burbank, California is putting in a good showing tonight on the Old Tube Radio Network. It's different. Oh, that's interesting. It looks like a freeze frame of me. It's different audience. I would say it's probably groovy. It's actually groovy audio that you're putting forth tonight, over.
Oh, now you're making me laugh. Yeah, you're dating both now. Vincent, Boss. Anyway, yeah, but on most radios, now this is a serious question, and I could probably answer it myself if I pulled the lid off this thing. But most 11-meter transmitters back in the day, their audio tube was a 12AX7. I don't think that's the case with the general radio telephone, so I gotta study that a little bit and figure out which is the audio tube. Paul probably knows, you probably know, but I think I looked at it one time and there's no 12AX7 in this radio, so. But anyway, that's probably what I need to replace. As long as it's working though, and able to check in on old tube radio, that's all I need. It's serving its purpose. Anyway, back to you, Dennis.
Back to me in the studio. You are correct. There was only 6 in that radio from 1962, 63. There's only 7 tubes, believe it or not. We've had a 13-tube general radio telephone with a sideband. The general radio telephone Super MC11 was 9 tubes. And at that time, down the road a piece, they did switch to an 12AX7 in the audio. This has 7 6-volt tubes. I don't have what they do exactly. There is a schematic, it says, at oldtuberadio.com for this radio that someone with schematic sense could probably trace through and said, there's your audio tube. But it would definitely not be a 12AX7. You'd have to jump into probably the Super MC 8, 9, 11 to get that. So save that 12AX7 for something else. I know you've got the guitar amp. Save your good one for the guitar amp, but when it gets a little weak, hang on to it, and it may work well in the general radio telephone. The audio may be funky. It may be out of sight, groovy, but it's good enough to be Radio 7 tonight. Over.
All right. Well, I'll do that for sure. And by the way, I guess I just bought some gold pen 12AX7s for my Fender. So anyway, we want to get over there. By the way, see what faked you out. I faked you out on what I did the FM1000. Anyway, that was another slogan from the good old days. Anyway, Dennis, thanks for checking it in. And by the way, but this radio does have a unique thing. If you want me to show it to you, I'd be happy to.
All right, I still have the picture up, so I will point the little mouse pointer. I think I know what you are about to, what do they say, lay it on us. Here come the judge. It's the switch below, everything's backwards here. It's the switch below the S meter. Right there, it says tone signal. The MC5 was probably the most advertised general radio telephone. The MC5 was much like the MC4, but had a stronger transmitter. And it was the last general with the tone signal. Thanks to the FCC, it said no more tone signal. Not sure why, but probably due to malicious interference. It was replaced with a bullhorn on the MC6. So check your general radio telephones, everybody. If you see a bullhorn, it's MC6 or later. If you see the tone signal, it's an MC5. Jerry has his finger on the tone signal and will tell us what it does. Over.
And that reminds me that the time that Eric had his MC5 on, but his was sick. Anyway, thanks for checking it in, Dennis. Back to you.
And there are different flavors of that tone signal, and without Harvey here to help me out, I don't know if it's because there's a tube involved, or there's some capacitors involved, or some resistors involved, or some value involved that changes the frequency of the oscillation to do whatever it does. But yours does it well. Radio 7, the general radio telephone, Super MC5 on your old tube radio network tonight at the 45 mark. Let's go over to the Jingle Singers, having way too much fun over in Studio B.
You're listening in the latest style.
27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio.
In wonderful
Fresno, California.
Looking for radio number.
Hey, Dennis.
Hello, radio.
Hey, this is TVE 103. Real quick, I have a 1975 Cobra 22. I don't know, like, would that be able to, you know, like, I don't know, what's the word? Like, is it, like, can I talk with it, or, you know, like, on your, you know, little, thing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's Tube Radio is not required to chat on frequency here. What we do, there's that do. What we do is take note, and there it is. This is the physical note, if you were watching the video, of those radios that do come by that have vacuum tubes that contain the valves, I think, as the Sheriff of Nottingham would say. And we just keep track of that. We're of course, we're called the Old Tube Radio Network. That's sort of how we started, with a group of stations that wanted to get away from the nightly grind or hate and discontent sometimes, jump down on this channel and talk with their vintage radios. So it is certainly accessible to stop by and chat with us on any radio, even if you homebrew something that's made out of a Dixie Cup and a kite string. We'll talk to you, but to actually, I guess, make the list that we read off on the end, then it probably is going to have some tubes in it. So no problem there on the Old Tube Radio Network. We like to chat with anybody who is willing to jump out here on a Saturday evening.
Okay. Well, yeah, anyways, check me in.
103, it is done. If I go over to the page where it says Tube Radio Time, it says checked in number 103 from the mobile radio. Good to have you out there. We've got some better mobile radio condition weather going on tonight. We've got you checked in. You are sounding good.
Thank you.
And who is that? Waiting for the Messenger 2, getting recapped, and the new mic cord. Let's see, the Messenger had the mic cord hardwired in. The Messenger 2, nice radios, really nice transmitters. The receiver on my Messenger was always kind of strange, but the Messenger 2 is probably a little bit better. And like we just heard, the 223, basically a Messenger 2. So great audio. And hopefully you'll be able to put that Messenger 2 to good use. The Old Tube Radio Network, we are standing by for radio number 8. For the SWLs out there, there's the radio that's a really cool design. Hallicrafters had some really good designers on their shortwave radios of the 40s and 50s, and there is the SX40 that Toby mentioned. They're like the geometrical shapes with the circle tuning dial, the front speaker. They had another one that was really cool. And then the other series, the bigger ones, the SX99 and the 101 series were a little bit larger than that. Let's see if I can have them. I think I had borrowed an SX 100 or 101 starting in my pre-amateur radio days to do some SWLing. I ran a long wire up through a tree, and it was a good thing. Still listening for radio number 8 here on the Old Tube Radio Network. Okay, and there is, I want to safely say that's the SX 100, or that series where they have the huge S meter in the front, and then the regular main tuning dial and a band spread dial. That might have been what I had. It looks familiar, and it had a Q multiplier with it, I think, from Heathkit. But that's the way to start. If you're a true shortwave listener, that's what you want. That and a long wire. The other thing about those early radios, since sideband wasn't a big deal at the time, to tune in sideband was a little tricky because you'd end up having to turn on your BFO, your beat frequency oscillator, which is how you tuned in CW, and then back down the RF gain because the stations would distort the front end. So listening to sideband on those is pretty tricky. It's really an art. You've got to be able to zero beat it and then reduce the RF gain to get the audio to come in. But they always had some great crystal, because there was an AM radio. You had some wide and narrow filtering. So you definitely had to drive that radio to take it anywhere from CW, AM, and sideband. The Old Tube Radio Network, listening for radio number 8.
How about a late check-in?
Yeah, as I switch to the control room camera, everybody can see me switching, figuring out where I put the SWL check-in list. Or I think we have a proxy check-in for you, but I will switch that to an official, as we say, a copyrighted feature of the Old Tube Radio Network, an X in the square, over.
Thank you, and thank you very much to number 40, Larry, who probably proxied me in. Thank you.
And thank you. Sounding good tonight as we are, gosh, it is almost 10 o'clock already. Jingle Singers, okay, they're at the microphoniums, and they will do their thing.
What are the magic numbers?
27.085 megahertz, channel 11.
Are the magic letters?
OTR.
Right here in
Fresno, California.
Radio Magic.
Old Tube Radio.
For you.
And someone asked about Echolink check-ins tonight. You know, I was at a radio fundraiser function, so I got in late tonight, and I was doing well to get all the other radio garbage set up tonight, so I do not have the Echolink properly set up. Where's my Post-it notes? I should leave a Post-it note for next week if I actually have time to get perhaps the Echolink set up properly so we can get some check-ins. Because there are some stations would like to do that, and we'd like to chat with you. It's fun when we do it. So again, I keep promising these things, but I will see if I can actually do it next week, as we are close to counting and amounting, but still looking for radio number 8.
Well, this device is probably using more electricity than something that would be used to check in on Echolink, but how about something from the Radio Lounge?
We like the Radio Lounge. Let's see, I think I need to also check you in on the SWL page from the Radio Lounge, which I will do. That's Mike SWL 47 at the Microphonium. I just lost my other computing device. You know what I might want to do here? Do I really need that? Probably not. I may be able to work without it. So let's do that. Since it's right near the end here, I'll try and slog through this without computer number 2. Do you indeed, now that we've got you checked in, sir, do you indeed perhaps have something glowing in the dark? Over.
Yeah, I do. It's definitely glowing in the dark, and it's definitely, I don't want to say stinking in the dark, but this radio is definitely used by a smoker. It's the I don't want to say stinking radio. I don't know. Maybe that's the new nickname of it. Actually, I don't mind people that smoke at all. But this, boy, I'll tell you what, man. This eBay special. I don't know what it is, but man, there's something coming off this, especially after cooking for a couple hours. But not for your smelling, but for your listening pleasure. I've got a Robin, a T123B, as in Bravo, with an original, like, really good-looking microphone. Actually, the whole radio looks really good. It's like the opposite of the way that the thing smells. This is the most mint-looking radio I've got in my collection. No Magic Eye tube, but it's still pretty cool to use.
And we're glad you chose Saturday night to use it and the Old Tube Radio Network as your forum. Oh, there it is. The paper dropped on the floor. Bringing up a photo of the Robin T123B. This is actually a very nice photo, so it may be indicative of your bird's eye view of your very own Robin T123 Bravo, with the color that I will describe. I'm not sure how you would describe it, but the color I will describe as green across the bottom, and the little inserts on your channel and audio selector knobs also being green. Nice audio. Mellow, maybe not fully 100% modulated, but I hear you just fine. And this was their flagship radio for a very long time, for 4 years, and I'm really thinking the only reason that it wasn't their flagship radio after 1976 is they had to do something that had 40 channels. So give us a good choice tonight. I do not believe we have a Robin radio on the list yet, so back to you for transmission while I pick up my Old Tube Radio Network score sheet off the floor.
Okay. Well, you know, as always, you bring up the rather curious comments about these radios. So if this was in production for 4 years, I'm curious how long the next in the family here, the Yellowbird? What was that guy called? The next robin? That wasn't C. What the heck was it? The yellow robin after this called?
I believe it was the T240D, which was the other modified Panasonic chassis for 40 channels, which was shared by a few other manufacturers as well.
Oh, that's curious. So you said that D is in Delta. So oh boy, that's curious. There was no C as in Charlie between these two. Well, that's curious. I don't know if you want to make a comment on that. But this, what can I say about this radio? Besides it looking pretty good, and yes, you always catch me, not really. I guess it takes a little bit of skill to use these radios, and the second I kind of concentrate on other things, you pick up on that. This does not have, as I said, it doesn't have an amplified mic. It's got the original one. So you definitely have to get into it to make the modulation lamp work. It doesn't have a Magic Eye tube like my other Robin, the 123. So it's got a little lamp, and boy, you really, I've got to scream into this thing. It feels like I'm screaming. It's pretty uncomfortable. How's that for an adjective?
That's good, and a good demo. As you got closer to the microphone, your audio got louder, meaning the radio has some headroom and there's no distortion, and it's doing what the tubes do, whatever the audio tube is in that. And Richard, I missed your comment. I just want to take an aside here. Mike, we were talking about audio tubes. The 12AX7, the famous audio tube that's in a few of the tube radios. I have to see if we can find a tube complement of that. I wouldn't be surprised if that has a 12AX7. But Richard mentions that the transmit audio tube for the MC5 back in 1962 was the 6BQ5, which did double duty as the audio output amplifier. So I think whatever audio tube you have in the Robin is working just fine, over.
Well, that's curious. I'd just love to pull this thing apart and, basically find out exactly what's going on inside there. But unfortunately, that's a little above my head right now. I don't want to say I'm an appliance operator, but I'm pretty close to it. But what else can I say about this? It does. I guess this one works better when you scream into it. I really do. I don't like doing it. But you got to scream into it, and I will if you'll give me a moment. Okay, we're going to demonstrate. This one does have the range boost, and of course I always have to leave this on. We're going to give you, assuming of course the switch is working. We're going to the range boost is on right now, and we're going to give you a sample of what it sounds like right now when the range boost is off. Really got to scream if you want to make the radio work on this mode, but we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and it's back on. Well, that made just a pretty pathetic difference in the illumination on the modulation lamp, but it wasn't noticeable. I don't know what the audio was like, but maybe it did something.
Big difference. I'm assuming it might have been set up for a preamplified microphone when you go to no range, expand range boost. Your audio is, let's see, thin. I'm going to use, for those who know Tim, WA1HLR. Your audio is, and this is what he would say. Out of Maine, out of Waukegan, Maine, he would call your audio piss weak when you turn off the range boost. So it's made for an amplified microphone. When you turn it on, it is glorious. It sounds great. You can talk on it as you originally arrived in the nice mellow mode where you're not straining the vocal folds, or you can get on top of the microphonium and make it a little bit louder and move the S meter a bit. So it is perfect the way you have it. We did a little studying, a little research, and indeed, you are running the infamous 12AX7 as your first audio modulator mic preamp tube. So you have the infamous 12AX7 in there doing its job. So no problem. It is telling you true. When you see that modulation light not blinking when you turn off the switch, it's because it is, well, I won't use that word again.
Actually, I like that. I think that's just absolutely delightful. Well, I got to ask you real quick. If this was so bad, what were folks doing back in the day when this radio came out? What were they doing with the microphones? Were they just throwing this stock thing away? And what? Putting a powered astatic or an amplified Turner mic on, or what?
Without looking at the Sam's photo facts, I don't know which one this is in. Here's my guess. An engineering thing would be you run a tone of a certain dB through the microphone input, a nominal level, and then you set whatever the control is for the range boost off, and then you run another tone, or you look at some output of your audio, and then you have a setting for your range boost on. Now, they might have set it to make it more like an attenuator or a booster. I'm not sure, but that's typically what they would do. They would have some setting saying that if you introduce this amount of audio into the microphone input without the range expand, this is what you're going to get. And with that same amount of audio, and we expand it, it's going to give you this without distortion. So they would set up something like that. But, people go in and change things. The components change. The radio was not made with an amplified microphone in mind, so you put an amplified mic on there, and all of a sudden now you're inducing way too much gain for the expander, so you need to turn it off, and it's basically like you've done that without using the radio. Your microphone is doing that. So my guess is there is some engineering way that it was set up properly, and so if you were to just get it out of the box, everything would be fine. But, you start adding this stuff. And the engineer's probably saying, wow, you start adding stuff to our radios and you just mess it up.
Well, as always, you've piqued my curiosity. I don't know if SWL20 has checked in, but if he has, I know what's coming up next. Maybe Father's Day in 2 or 3 months, or halfway in between there. Maybe I'll put that bug in his ear to see if he wants to assist me in the microphone setup on this radio. On that, I think I'm going to clear out of here 10:09. I'm sure I'm hogging up the air here, and I'll let someone else check in or whatever. But anyways, thanks for letting me check it in. Even though it does smell rather unique, it's always a joy to listen to everyone on here and you as well. So thank you, and back to you, sir.
All right, I'm getting ready to count them out and take any last check-ins. Got the Orban audio modulation up there for you. What was the theme? Robin talks good, like a radio should. Especially one that may have a little bit more nicotine in it than the old tube. And back to the control room here. We've got another check-in standing by. We'll be right back. But, of course, the jingle singers sing that it is past the 10 o'clock hour, would probably like to do this.
Let's do some spelling.
OTR. 27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio. Old Tube Radio.
And OTR counting and amounting and listening for radio number 9.
Will this do?
That will do quite nicely for radio number 9, over.
Yeah, I got busy during the week, and I never got this radio off the bench. It's the Browning Compact with the R2700A receiver and the stock D104 microphone.
And I had to look at the meter to see if you were not in some different location that you were close to. That is really loud. And that's the smaller Browning. That's the compact. This is one I don't think I have a good photo of. I'll see what I can find out. But the audio is just super loud. It's got the Browning sound. I mean, it's all, the highs and the mid-highs, so it's piercing into the headphoniums. And I knew it wasn't the R68 T68, but man, it is doing quite well. Over.
Well, I have a little help. I wanted to make sure you could hear me and that Mike could hear me. Are you still out there, Mike?
Over.
Hey, Mike?
Oh, hello.
Yeah, we got to check the Robin out as far as tubes go. The modulator tube does audio on receive and modulation on output, but I think it's a one-section tube, and it does, it switches back and forth. The preamp tube, the 12AX7, I believe one half operates on receive and the other half operates on transmit. And I think that transmit part might be weak.
Really? On that 123 Bravo?
Yeah. When you turn the range boost off, it could be the microphone, but it went further than I think it should based on the distance between us.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm super curious on that. And you do remember we put every tube in there was new, right? When we put them in.
Oh yeah, but you run that radio about every week, so I'm thinking maybe one half of it has gotten weak. But I've got a bunch of them, so we'll check it out. Also, the schematic for the 123B is not in Sam's PhotoFact, but Cliff has a copy of a factory schematic, and I have one somewhere around here. But, it'll give parts and this and that, but I don't think it gives voltages and such. But it's similar. Well, I'll check and see if the audio section is similar to the 240D, which is in Sam's PhotoFact, but the entire radio is very similar to the 23-channel T-Berries and such.
Okay. Again, it's getting super late. So I'm fixated now. So there was a 123, a 123 Bravo, and then 240. That's just a massive skip. I'd be very curious in finding out what the logic was behind that. And actually, I'd like to find out. It's kind of curious. I've got I think I have all the Sam's PhotoFacts original books for all the radios except for that 123 Bravo. I'd be very curious to find out where those copies from factory schematic came from. I don't know if you comment on that, or if we bought OTR enough time to do the counting and amounting.
Keep going.
The factory schematic I got when I picked up a 123 factory manual type deal thing that came with the radio. I found it on eBay somewhere. The guy was selling a whole bunch of schematics and owner's manuals and such that came with radios, and I noticed one was a 123B, and he showed a schematic with it, so I got it. And then I think I made a copy of it, and Cliff's got one, or he might have an original, I'm not sure, but he does have one. And then I've got one around here somewhere. But the radio itself internally is similar to the T-Berry whatever. I forget the model number, but it's the 23-channel one. And then there's another radio that it's very similar to that you could actually use for working on a radio. But I'll check it out, and let me know when you've got some time, and we'll come by with the tube tester and the tubes and for the audio, and we'll see if it's a microphone or what. But we'll get it all figured out.
Okay, sounds good. And I know the Jingle Singers are like way past their contractual obligation for performing this evening. So on that, I will sign off with the one last tube radio, 123. No Bravo after that, with the Magic Eye tube, an amplified astatic or astatic microphone, and of course the Magic Eye that's winking and blinking and all that good stuff. I'm trying to dissipate the nasty smell from the other radio. So this one is slowly working on that. I need that. What was that George Burns thing that he was plugging? It was like an ashtray. What was that thing called? It was an ashtray that was like a HEPA air filter combined. I need one of those things on top of that other radio. Not this one. 123 is good, but the Bravo is in. You don't want to smell me. That's another story. Anyways, the second radio, second Robin for tonight. Thanks for letting me check it. Back to you.
And let me grab it here. Don't go away, everybody. Radio 9, the Browning Compact, which we want to talk about just a little bit more. I found a better shot of it, and it's got some interesting things I want to talk to Harvey about before he goes. And Radio 10, which we just heard the Robin T123, really loud, strong, good fidelity audio on that. It sounds like the range boost, if it had one, is on. Also, Richard, who's watching the video, mentions, and I think he's talking about what you were talking about in the T123B, R91, the adjustment for the range boost. Says the schematic has no value listed on the resistor next to it. One of the hush-hush adjustments, like don't cut the green wire, or as he says, warning, adjustment of this control might increase your output above FCC limits. Like you have been warned. Robin, sounds good, Mike. Thanks for bringing it by, Radio 10. And Harvey, if you're there, let's talk before we totally sign off about the Browning Compact, because it looks interesting. I see what looks like a external crystal channel selector and maybe 8 channels and some other stuff, if I got the right picture here, courtesy of the radiomuseum.org.
Roger, 10 channels, 5 on the left, 5 on the right. Up in the center is number 11, and I have a crystal for 11 plugged in it. Excuse me. Above that is a double rectangular box where you put your call letters, I guess. But that's got a little bit of damage to the graphics. And in this radio, you can really feel the graphics. I mean, it's painted on, you put your finger over it, you can feel it. While other radios, it's kind of like more recessed as far as the wording on there. In fact, I've got a Regency range gain, and I'm just rubbing my hand over the lettering, and I can barely feel it, but it's nice and bold. But I can barely feel it. On the Browning, you can really feel the printing. It's really raised. Anyway, it's got the on-the-air modulation light to the right, and that's it. No meter and no power-on type light. So You don't know when it's on, except when you turn the receiver on. The receiver through the accessory socket brings power to the transmitter. So that's how that works. The transmitter gets its power from the receiver. And also the T27, I believe, does the same thing. Now that is similar looking to this transmitter, fewer channels, but I think it's got a power on light, or it's got something extra on it, but fewer channels. And they also made T27S with a power supply in it, so you had either or. But this one only came without power supply.
Assuming it is, would this be pre-Eagle? I don't have any information on the dates, but the fact that it's not 23 channels would lead me to believe that. Interesting. It just has really good audio. If you hear the replay of the audios, the replay of the audio, you'd really be surprised at how punchy the audio is. Also, like I said, with the range, it was putting in a good signal, but still sounding really nice, and a rare item of interest. I suppose maybe this was more mobile at the time. I don't know. Maybe an affordable option if you didn't need the big thing. I really wasn't aware that you don't hear too many of them around. So it's nice to know that they didn't skimp. It sounds like a Browning. It does what a Browning does. It's just they don't give you as much. It's like who's the car buffs? It's the Ford Falcon. It's the Chevy Nova. It's the Del Rey. It's the Valiant. It was just like we need to give you an entry-level economy version or something like that. It is Radio 9. So I'll go back to you for a transmission, and then at 10:24, the Jingle Singers have something for us, and we'll get out of here. I know a lot of stations still listening in. Interesting program tonight. I thank everybody who's out there staying up late with us tonight. Back to you.
Okay. This one came out around 60, 61, something like that. The T2700s and this one came out around the same time. I'm not sure which one. I believe this one was not the first one. I think the T2700 might have been the first. Not sure. I think so because I have a factory brochure that shows this transmitter being paired with the R2700A receiver. Excuse me, although it would go with an R2700. And then the T2700s, I think, were paired with the R2700, indicating earlier, but hard to tell. Anyway, this one is all, it's obviously pre-Eagle. After this came the S9, and after the S9, the 23S9, and then after those, the S23, which says Eagle on it, or actually has a picture of an eagle on it. Doesn't say, it says R27 for the receiver, S23 for the transmitter, but I believe it doesn't say Eagle on it. But I'm not sure. It might. Well, wait a second. I got one over here. I'm looking. Nope, no Eagle. Does not say Eagle. Oh, yes, it does. It says Browning Eagle S-23 and Browning Eagle R-27. I am mistaken, and I should have known. Okay, yeah, that's the first Eagle. The R27S23, first Golden Eagle, is the R68, T68. Anyway, yeah, looking at an R2700A that I have paired with a 23S9. And yeah, the 23S9 just says 23S9.
Don't want to get confused, and I'm really glad Toby's with us tonight. He's staying up late. He mentioned that it doesn't. He's got one. He said he might post a picture for us. So that's great. And he also said it doesn't have all the limiting in the audio, and you can definitely hear that the audio is just nice and clear. And typically, for the Brownings, you can push them a lot, and you don't get the flat topping like you would for Hallicrafters or something. So really good. I think if you listen to the archives, you will be very pleased with the way the Compact is performing tonight. Over.
Well, I like it. The tubes are 12AU7 audio into a 12AX7 audio into a 6BQ5 modulator. Then you have the 6G8 a translator into a 5763. Now, that tube setup, I believe, is also in the S9, 23S9, S23, the Golden Eagle, and the Golden Eagle Mark II, and the Golden Eagle Mark III AM. They changed in the big SSB Mark III. They added a couple of tubes in there, so because of sideband and such, they added 2 tubes for sideband and an extra buffer tube, 6 DA6 buffer, and then a 12 BY7 driver, and then a 7558 final in the Mark IIIs. And the Mark IVs have that same setup, I believe.
All right, well, I am glad you know your tubes, helping us out here, anyone listening. We do have some schematics and things at oldtuberadio.com, the operators manuals and things like that, but sometimes talking to the people that have the actual radios and the tops up and do the work can give you those little hints and kinks that you don't normally get. Harvey, I'm glad you made it out to the radio room tonight late. That's what happens when it starts warming up a little bit. It's easier to wander out there, and it's not so cold, and you can stay a little bit later. So Compact is doing good. We'll enjoy all that. We'll go back to you for transmission. We'll do some counting and mounting here.
Roger. A couple of people talked about when they picked up their Mark IIIs. I picked mine up in 1977 or 78. Probably 78. And I got it in a trade. I went over that. I've explained that before on OTR. I kind of had a trade. But the funny thing was, the radio I traded away was one that I got in a trade for a Lafayette HB 444, which I purchased at Clyde's Corner CB shop in San Leandro, California, back in 1974 or 5, something like that. And I got, now, that one I purchased, but I also traded in one that I had before at the time, and that was my first actual CB radio, which was a Metrotech Pacer. And I traded that along with some cash and got a 444, traded the 444 for the infamous Cheyenne Comanche, traded that for the Mark III and a PDL2 antenna, rotor and cable in 1977 or 78. So I've had that Mark III for a while.
Were the roads paved back then?
Say that again?
I was wondering, were the roads paved back then, or were there still dirt roads? And where did you hook that up on the horse?
Well, we didn't have the wheel back then. We did have a horse. Well, actually, I didn't. I couldn't afford a horse, so I had a donkey. And I took the donkey and strapped a couple of pieces to it, poles, and took some bear skin and, in between, and I dragged the radio home.
Ah, okay. All right, Harvey, I was just checking.
Actually, I drove across the bay from Hayward to San Mateo, up the hill, took the radio, put it in the driver's seat of my friend's pickup truck, and I sat in the bed of the pickup truck holding a PDL2 antenna on a 3-foot pole down the hill across the San Mateo Bridge and home. That's when I had a little bit more guts than I have now.
Wow. That's pretty good. So that's when you first did your first rover. You were a rover. You had the big antenna and the big radio. So you're working rover, chasing grid squares.
Running from the FCC.
Yeah, you remember, Dennis. Yeah, I had to trade. I got rid of my Cheyenne Comanche because I got caught by the FCC. They walked in on me and said, get rid of that radio. And I said, okay. They didn't take it. So I talked on it, I think, another week. And a guy across the bay heard me. And he asked me what I had because his radio was pinging. And mine was making a crashing sound. And I told him what I had, and he said he had gotten his amateur license. Would I sell it? And I said, well, and I was thinking about it. I mean, like a dummy, I should have said yes right off the bat. Then he said, well, what about a trade for what he had? And he told me what he had. And then like a dummy, I thought, I don't know. And then he said, how about I throw in a PDL2 antenna? And I said, okay. So a friend of mine drove across the bay with me in his pickup truck, and the radio got the ride on the passenger seat in front, on the passenger side, and I rode in the back, hold the antenna, because it was still together. So there you go. And it cost me a bridge toll, a little bit of gas, and a 6-pack of beer for my friend, and straight trade.
You don't have the beer, but you still have the radio, right? And you don't have the radio.
Oh, yeah, radio sitting right here. That's the Mark III I use when I check in. Still have it from 1977, 78.
All right, I think that was probably a good deal and a good trade. I want to go ahead and sign off so we don't get too late here. And just from the conversation, Toby mentioned that on the tubes, the 75, because you probably can't see the video screen, the 7558 replaced the 5763, and I'm not sure what replaced the Comanche.
Well, since I'm able to now, I actually have a Comanche, Cheyenne Comanche, in storage. I put it on, but I shouldn't. Anyway. Next week, I'm thinking about getting rid of some radios, so I might mention that next week. Seriously thinking about it, got too much clutter. Anyway, I'll turn it back to you, thank you, and we'll be out.
All right, last call for any stations. We'll do some counting and amounting and go ahead and sign out here. Speaking of next week, we will be back again next week. But anyone else for the Old Tube Radio Network?
You're tuned to
OTR. Channel 11.
Right here in
Fresno, California.
Stay with us
Old Tube Radio.
and be modern.
Well, let's be as modern as we can be here on the Old Tube Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, time now for the current OTR totals.
That would be... Well, everybody's loud tonight. That would be the current... Thank you all in the other studio. Now they can go continue with the party over there. Current and final totals, checking in earlier on the SWL page, we had 12 check-ins on page 1, 13 on page 2, 14 on page 3, and 22 on page 4. I think page 4, the entire page 4 was out here tonight for a total of 61. That's probably our high for the year. 10 radios tonight, with the General Radio Telephones being the most heard manufacturer. What I believe is 4. Let me run down the list here. Started with the General Radio Telephone SB-72 from 1963, their sideband radio. Thanks to Paul for that. Jerry came by with the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB. Then Paul was on the General Radio Telephone BB-30. They're from their sideband to their business band offerings from 1963 and 1965. The ever-popular Hallicrafters CB-3A Little Phone from 1962, thanks to Jerry. Radio 5 was Paul on the General Radio Telephone Super MC-11A. We heard the E.F. Johnson Messenger 223 from Louis. Radio 7 was the General Radio Telephone MC-5 with the tone signal demonstrated for Radio 7. Thanks, Jerry. Radio number 8 was the Robin T123B, and maybe future episodes we'll see if the range boost has more boosting or less boosting, if it gets a peak and tweak. Radio number 8, it was radio number 8. Radio number 9 was the Browning Compact, which you just heard, and Radio 10, the Robin T123. Sounding quite nice. Coming up, and we'll talk more about it because I couldn't find any information on the website, the Madera Amateur Radio Club doing some items at the end of April. And let's see, what else? What else do I need to say? I guess 73 to everybody. Thanks for all those who tuned in. 27085 is where we're at. oldtuberadio.net. Many of you listen in. Enjoy. A lot of you who take a lot of your time and run the Facebook sites that have great information. Certainly appreciate that. I know it takes a lot of work to do that. Not just like a one-night thing like this. It's a constant daily thing. So all of us out there in the 11-meter community appreciate those who take the time to keep the sites up and running for questions and answers and things like this. Also, Frodex, searchlawrence.com, keeping the Nixie tubes running and all stuff like that. We will catch you next time on your Old Tube Radio Network. 73, everybody.
Thank you much, Dennis. Another great job.
73, Dennis. 73.
Thank you, Dennis.
And I know you don't have any clutter over there.
Oh, yes, I do. Okay. We'll see you next week.
That's like somebody saying that there's an ugly antenna.
Well, I don't know. I look around here and I go, I can't believe this. Anyway, it's time to, I don't know, thin out the herd or do something. So next week I'm going to be, well, during the week I'm going to be looking at stuff and seeing what I can do. Okay, take care.
All right, thanks, everybody, and we'll decommission the glowing 6L6 at oldtuberadio.net, and good night on the YouTube video. We do archive, for those of you who want to give yourself a radio check, we do archive the audio at oldtuberadio.net. The archive button will bring up the OTR magnetophone that has to load all those little 3-inch reel-to-reel tapes. Look for the date of your archive thing you'd like to listen to, and whether it was an SWL check-in or during the tube radio time, and it should be there. Good night, everybody. 73.